हेलो सलाम नमस्ते सत श्री अकाल रेडियो जिंदगी 1170 सुन रहे हैं आप हैप्पी लोहड़ी हैप्पी मकर संक्रांति हैप्पी पोंगल हैप्पी बिहू whatever it is that you're celebrating happy all of that to you. So you are here at Candid Conversations with Renu Dillon. The show airs every Tuesday 7 to 7:30 और आप हमें Facebook Live पर भी देख सकते हैं. Just go there, check out रेडियो जिंदगी का page and you will find us. वैसे this show is brought to you by Genius Kids. Genius Kids has 38 centers across Bay Area, Sacramento and Tracy. और अगर आपके पास कोई भी child care needs है, whether you have an infant or a toddler or any child care needs, do not forget to check out geniuskidsonline.com. With us we have Miss Renu Dillon, the Karta Dharta of Genius Kids, CEO and founder of Genius Kids. How many years have you been with Genius Kids?
For 19 years.
Wow, hello and welcome. Happy Lohri or congratulations.
Happy Lohri, happy all the other holidays you mentioned. I can't even say them.
By the way, congratulations. Genius Kids won some award for 2019. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, we just got voted Best of Fremont. So that's the 4th year in a row running. And the neat thing is last year, this year as well, for the 2019, our Genius Kids Ardenwood campus got voted by the Newark residents as the best tutoring center. Too.
Wow.
So great. I'm really glad. But we focus on quality, as you know. So, it's not a mom and pop operation. We go by the book and we make sure that we follow all the regulations. So I'm thrilled. And thank you to Ria and her team, Shana and her team, and of course my rocking team as well.
Amazing. So, and I hope 2020...
And Sheena. I better not forget Sheena. I'll get a message on Facebook. And you, Sheena. You're doing a great job.
Yeah, so 2020 I hope across Bay Area you get several such awards. Yeah. All right, moving on with Candid Conversations with Renu Dillon. We bring you different topics here, and listeners, if you have any topics, don't forget to write to us, renud@gmail.com, renud@gmail.com. And special, it's really close to your heart when we talk about women and children. Yes, today also we have a very special topic, and we have a special guest here in the studio. Yes. Tell us more.
So I always love to talk about this topic because I really feel that not enough is said about it, and that's domestic violence and the awareness of what's going on. It's so amazing that when so many people will ask me, why are you always talking about this? And I always tell them because we need to educate our community, because many of us, especially in our Indian community, we want to pretend it doesn't exist.
Right.
Or if we know it happens, we just ignore it. We're famous for doing things like that. We like to not talk about things that are what we think are going to affect our reputation or affect what people think about us. So I'm particularly close to this topic, having gone through this experience myself. And I brought with me a good friend of mine, and she's very connected in this subject. Her name is Sonia. And I also make sure I say your last name right.
Pelia.
Okay, Sonia Pelia. She is a gender equality activist with over 26 years of leadership, board and volunteer work with the award-winning non-profit Maitri, fabulous organization, which is www.maitri, spelt as MAITRI.org, empowering South Asian survivors of domestic violence in the Bay Area. She also runs a parallel career track as a marketing executive in a B2B high-tech in the Silicon Valley. So she's a smart cookie with it. Yeah.
Thank you.
And she serves on the board of the non-profit Move Up. She's an advisor to the non-profit boards and founders and is a recipient of numerous awards herself.
Wow.
So welcome to our show, Sonia.
Thank you, Renu, as always. I'm always so impressed that you talk so openly about this issue, which is, I think, very, very difficult for our community in particular here, because we are so successful, all of us. We want to be the model minority. We don't want to talk about difficult things because we are afraid somehow they will diminish us in the eyes of the others.
Right, absolutely. No, and I feel this is a very much needed topic, and I always talk about the example of when I got married and I had some personal experiences on domestic violence myself. I didn't know who to turn to, and it would have really helped to have been able to have an organization I could have called and got some advice. And yes, there are a lot of mainstream communities and organizations you can call, but I think when you have someone from within our own culture and community, they understand it sometimes a little bit more. And so I was, in actual fact, I think when Maitri had one of its first events, I was actually over there as well. And so I'm just thrilled to have you on our show. So my first question is, a lot of people I mean, we talk about, abuse and domestic violence, and everybody says, oh yeah, it happens back home. They don't think it happens here. What are the statistics of what are these? Is there really domestic violence going on amongst our community here? Because as you mentioned, we're all meant to be successful, educated people. How can people like that be doing this?
It's a very, very interesting question, because it's something that people feel, oh, if you're educated, if you're from an upper socioeconomic group, you've come to this country, it's not there. That's not true. Domestic violence, or intimate partner violence, as it's now being called, it crosses every boundary. But I want to talk briefly about two studies to buttress the points that we are making, that it is in our community and is quite severe. So a survey was done of South Asian women in Massachusetts, and 40.8% of the women said that they were domestic violence survivors. A second study, which is actually even more interesting and actually painful to think about, a comparative study was done on penetration of domestic violence in African American, Hispanic, and South Asian women. The study found that the severity of the violence, domestic violence, among South Asian women was more than both the other communities, and yet the South Asian women did not reach out for help as much as the Hispanic and African American women did. In fact, as African American women left those violent relationships at a much higher rate. And the last study, which is very interesting, is from Shamita Das-Gupta, who is a professor at Rutgers and also the founder of Manavi, an organization similar to Maitri in New Jersey. She found that there was actually a lot of, in a study that was published in 2000, there was a lot of coercion and hushing by the community itself of domestic violence. And the way the community responded to domestic violence in South Asian families was to say that it was the woman's fault, and their cultural moorings were teaching them to keep the family together, and they had to be subservient, otherwise the community would reject them. We are in the 21st century. It's, I think, sometimes very difficult, even though I have been volunteering and working for over 26 years in this, to still read some of these studies to find out that the lack of support we give our own people.
Right.
Yeah. But it hits that nerve, because even when I was going through my divorce and I decided to go through a divorce, the first thing I was told by very close friends, okay, why are you doing this? What are people going to say about you? And baad mein, who's going to get married to your daughters because they're going to say that you're divorced or you've left your husband. And it's just a very community thing, and that's just one example. Same thing if you find out that somebody's taking drugs, they'll say, kisi ko batana nahi, I don't want anyone to know, because what are people, that's always the first thing. What are people going to say? What are people going to think?
That aside, but I get it, what are people going to say, but what do we have at stake here? It's somebody's life. Someone's reaching out for domestic violence, and we, the so-called, the cream of India here, and I'm shocked about the studies that we have. So, Sonia, in your opinion, what are the takeaways that you have out of the studies? What is it that drives this kind of statistics that you just pointed out?
I think there's a massive underpinning of misogyny, patriarchal systems in which one gender is oppressed by the other gender. It's taught that, women are inferior. Women are responsible for keeping the home. Women are expected to behave in certain ways. When you talk to somebody and you think automatically somebody is not your equal, no matter how educated they are, how much money they earn, then I think there's a dynamic that brings in these kind of issues. The second problem is that studies show that, and these are Western studies, South Asian studies, show that domestic violence is a learned behavior. 80% of people who abuse grew up in abusive homes. Mm-hmm. So that's the second problem, right? The third problem becomes that when you are raising your children here, think of the complications besides the home country, okay? You're an immigrant. You feel you've left your country, your skin feels raw, you've come here, these people have different social norms, they have different societal norms. You want to bring up your children in a way that's in the home country, which may not actually be valid anymore.
Right.
You want that your children should be better than you. They should be more successful than you. So you start adding all of these pieces in there. And I think it makes for a very toxic kind of environment if you're not watching out for it. We are also told that men behave in a certain way. Women are supposed to behave in a certain way. Girls are supposed to behave in a certain way. You know, a really insightful comment was made to me by an immigrant. I used to work with him in high tech, and he said that every time, he was not Indian, he was not South Asian, he said, but he was from a very traditional culture, and he said every time he left his house in the morning, he felt he had crossed a border. And every time he went home at night, he crossed another border. So his life was so dichotomous that the mainstream country that he lived in really had no correlation to his home life.
So people change completely.
Think of this, right? Yeah. So you go home, and here we are 3 women sitting, and supposing we were born and raised here, and we go home and then we are told girls should cook, boys shouldn't help in the kitchen, but yet you're told you should have a career, you should be in tech, you should be successful. It's very messing with your mind, right?
Right.
But then when you go home, your paycheck is controlled. How much you can spend, what you can do. It's my money. It's never our money. It's your money is my money. My money is my money.
And God forbid you ever ask for a separate bank account. You've had it.
You're done.
Right.
We talked about that in one of my shows. You're done.
Because it is everything about you will be questioned. But going back to the parenting question, right? You brought up that this is a very confused space for a parent where you're trying to hold on to your identity, give that, and then raise them in a Western setup. So what are the mistakes that people do, and they don't know, they don't realize where they're raising this kind of or encouraging this kind of behavior where kids grow up and they think that it's cool and like women are lesser.
It's very interesting when each of us is having a conversation or an interaction within our family environment, right? And a lot of us are very close-knitted, right? We live with in-laws, perhaps brother-in-laws move from India, maybe your sister-in-law lives with you. In all these interactions, do we ever think how we talk? Do we ever think about what we say to our children and what feedback they are giving? Do we ever give the same respect to somebody else that we expect that result? And I'm talking about both men and women, because men do get physically and emotionally and psychologically abused by partners. And if they are in a gay relationship, it could be 2 men or 2 women. I think, how many of us really hold ourselves accountable? And how many of ourselves ask ourselves that, what did you ask your partner? Was that the right thing to do? Was that an equal thing? People think gender equality means that you take a pair of scales and you say both people are equal. That's not what gender equality or parity is. It's about mutual respect. Right? It's about giving agency to the other person, giving agency to your children. So I'll tell you a really interesting thing. South Asian teens have the highest suicide rates in this country. Because of the pressures that they go through. So my daughter is going to university in the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. And, I, being a Desi parent, I'm so embarrassed to say this. I asked her many times, did you join the Desi club? Did you join the South Asia club? So this time she said to me, Mom, the reason I didn't join it is the kids party so hard. She said it is so difficult to be around them because they drink, they smoke, they've been let out of a cage. And that's not how my husband and I raised our daughter. So she's like, what is the glamour of drinking 5 vodka shots? She doesn't get it. So how aware are we of the pressures that our children are under?
But that's exactly, even, when I talk to parents here, they'll always tell me, I don't want my kid to go to this school because I don't want them to be with mainstream because they'll get into drugs and drinking. I want them to be with Desis. And I always say, so do you think Desi kids don't drink and take drugs?
Can we bust this myth, please, here?
Yeah. Seriously. Wake up, everybody, and listen in. Desi kids do as much, if not more, because they have more money to spend. We give them the money.
And then the other thing, this is another interesting thing I want to tell you. sometimes it's very hard to have an open conversation with your children. You're the mother of 2 daughters, right? I'm a mother of a daughter. I want to protect my daughter, but by not talking about things that are dangerous, things that are inappropriate, is not making her safer.
Yeah.
It's actually putting her in more danger, right? And sometimes when I have conversations with my daughter, and she's 19 and a half, and she'll tell me so much stuff about her friends and what they're doing or what she's doing, and I've learned to say like, that's interesting. I try not to judge. I try not to ask her questions because I want her to have a safe space. So one of the things we told her when she became a teenager, that I would be more mad if I found out something had gone wrong from somebody else.
Yeah. We have the same rule in the house. You have to come and tell me first.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how many of us think about this?
Right.
Instead, we are saying don't drink, don't associate with those white kids, the brown kids, the black kids, whatever, not knowing our kids are going to do all of this stuff anyway.
And we actually close the communication between the child and ourselves.
Right.
Absolutely.
And eventually all this translates to, the domestic violence that we're talking about.
Because, my big thing is, jab hum shaadi karte, right? You play those pathetic songs that say, Abhi, you left your parents' house, you've gone to the other house, wapas nahi aana hai because wohi aapka ghar hai, right? Their in-laws are your mother and father, hum to chale gaye, right? So when that nonsense plays in your head, what's the first thing you think of is, if I'm miserable and unhappy and I tell my parents, what's going to happen? How can I go back home? It's going to be shameful to them, or if the siblings haven't got married. And I think this is one of the big things that people worry about here.
Also, I think people don't want to get help in the sense that it's considered getting defeated. It's being defeated, right, by life. But it's not just not having an open engagement with your children is causing domestic violence. But what if your son or daughter gets into a relationship that is not safe? Every South Asian parent I meet says, my children don't date.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think we have the same friends. Yeah.
But that's not true.
Yeah.
The kids are going to they're going to explore. And if you don't help them figure out this, we're going to continue to carry this forward. Why do South Asian kids have the highest suicide rate? I think this is a shocking thing for all of us to be contemplating.
And is that overall nationwide, or is it
nationwide? It's nationwide. Asian girls have the fastest rates of growing depression. And the reason, again, is that not only are you supposed to be academically brilliant, not have a boyfriend, but you're supposed to go to MIT and then fly the mission to Mars by yourself.
Yeah.
And then, you marry somebody that your parents pick for you. I mean, the expectations are endless. Right? And I can only talk about my personal experience. So my daughter is studying philosophy and linguistics. The first thing every Desi person asks me, what kind of job will she get? And I said, I have no idea. I guess she'll be eating a lot of frozen burritos from Trader Joe's while she figures that out. But the thing is, we cannot control our children's happiness. We need to encourage them to blossom.
Yeah. I'm totally with that. And sometimes it may not be a dream that you want them to do, because they may not be thinking compensation. I think I always say tell parents, because I get this all the time at the age of 3, I want him to only do math all day because he's going to be an engineer. Have you asked him if he wants to be an engineer at the age of 3? Maybe we should potty train him first before he becomes an engineer.
That's a thought.
Yeah, but I always say, don't try and live the dreams maybe you couldn't make through your kids, and it's good to guide them. If they want to do something that's not going to earn any money and they get used to a certain lifestyle, my advice has always been, you got used to getting your nails and your hair done, and make sure you can afford this, on your own. And but I absolutely agree with you. Everybody thinks IT, and anything that's not IT or medicine or dentistry.
To talk about that, right? Just an extension of that. So we have engineers, doctors. That's all Indians do any which way. And I was under the impression, and I'm sure a lot of my listeners will also agree, that because this is the educated people, right? So domestic violence only happens in the rickshaw wala class, where people are not educated, they don't think before they act. Here is we're talking about the affluent cream of India. How prevalent is it in Bay Area? What's your thought?
So we get on our helpline almost 5,000 phone calls a year.
Wow.
Last year we worked with 675 individual women.
This is Bay Area.
This is the Bay Area, and there are 2 organizations, Narika, which is in Berkeley, and we are based in the South Bay. There are something like 28 South Asian organizations specifically dealing with domestic violence in the US.
Wow. Okay, to slice it a little further.
Sure.
Are these women educated, like they are out there independent?
I cannot. Okay, so I'll take the standard that everyone thinks, only being successful is a doctor or an engineer.
Yeah.
You cannot imagine the number of clients we get who are doctors, engineers, PhDs,
Right.
scientists. We get the entire spectrum. We get women who are monolingual. They do require a lot more support because they have to get into ESL. They need to be trained for a job. They need to get, and this area is super expensive.
Right.
I mean, a room is running now I think $1,400
Right.
a shared room. But the women who are super educated, super qualified, have worked, it's much easier to help support them. But there's two problems, right? As immigrants, we don't have a social network. So you can be a doctor from the home country. You can be an engineer. You work there for 10 years. You don't have friends here. The second problem is that you don't know the laws in this country. So people take advantage, right? People know the laws, or they go to a lawyer first, and then they have a problem. The third issue is if your family doesn't support you. This is one of the most painful and difficult situations, because women, no matter how qualified they are, whether they got a $5 million settlement, and we've had clients who have actually gotten big settlements because this is Silicon Valley,
Right.
startup wealth, etc. If your family does not support you, even 10 years later, the woman is still devastated and unable to come out of it. If your family supports you, no matter what socioeconomic group you're in, how bad the situation is, you'll eventually emerge because the people who are your foundational relationships support you.
Right. Yeah.
But I wish I could say it's more South Indians versus Punjabis. So I'm Punjabi, I don't look Punjabi. And people will tell me, those Punjabis, they're so violent. Then, the Gujarati auntie I met, she said, these South Indians, they're so bad. But the problem is, it's all anyone you can imagine, religious. We actually had this woman come to us, and it was a very bad situation. They had 3 kids, super violent. He tried to kill them. Their head of their religious institution said to her, if you leave him, we will excommunicate you from the religion. She went back. What do you do, right? When your culture, your community puts this on you, what do you do?
Right. What a fitting name, Maitri, for people who don't have friends. You have a friend in this business.
I think support is very important. We have a few minutes, Sonia. So, for all those listeners out there, what can Maitri do? What's the first step that they should do? Of course, it's confidential. We know when you make a call, it's confidential.
You don't even need to use your real name. We have a helpline that runs from 9 to 3, Monday through Friday, and you can leave a message at other times at the safe time. But I would say this to anyone who even has the slightest inkling that things are not going right. Know your rights. Know what can happen to you. Know what are the steps you could take. Knowledge is power. By sitting at home or not taking these steps, you stand a chance of losing your children if you have children, your home, and not getting your rights. There are a lot of legal rights here. There are fantastic laws to support you, to protect you. We have 14 staff. We have a legal program. We have outreach, advocacy. We have court accompaniment, translations. We have a transitional home. We have a boutique. All of these. But call us. Find out your rights. And I always tell people, knowing your rights doesn't hurt you, it can only help you. We give referrals for therapists. We give a lot of solutions that can help you make the right decision. See, in the end, I'm not going to walk in her shoes or his shoes. It is their decision to make, but we can empower you to make the best decision for your circumstances.
Right. What's the best way to find Maitri if they have to?
You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google. You can call our helpline. We get a lot of messages from Facebook now, and we get them out of country, out of state. But we try to refer them to the local organizations that's possible. But I would say, think about equality, gender, kindness. Think about toxic masculinity. How do we raise our sons? How do we raise our nephews? Do we say things like our boys will be boys? Boys don't do
Boys
this.
don't cry.
Boys don't cry. Boys should be the supporters.
Tough one.
I'm guilty of saying that. Boys don't cry. I'm going to fix that. And I hope my listeners also will take a few pointers from here and quit doing that.
Actually, we should say girls should not cry.
True.
Yeah.
That's true. And not to say you're running like a girl, you throw like a girl.
Yeah.
You should be the engineer.
Yeah.
And one day in a workshop, this boy stood up and he said, why do I need to be the engineer? Why can't I marry a woman who's an engineer? And why can't I stay at home and take care of the kids?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Sonia. Such a pleasure having you. And we're going to have to continue this. This
yes,
is not enough.
we do have to. It was too little.
Yeah. And
I would love to.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much. And all I can say to the listeners out there is, if you know someone is in trouble, don't just sit there and be buried in your Facebook with your, posting your pictures of your clothes and your jewelry and whatnot. Reach out and help a friend. I think it's so important. And sometimes, even if they're not saying it, you know that they're trying to say something, and learn how to listen to words that are not said.
Right. And I'm going to combine what both of you said. Do not say ladkiyan paraya dhan hai. Say that no matter what happens, we've got your back. Thank you so much, Sonia.
That's it.
Wonderful way to end the show.
Thank you so much, Sonia. Thank you so much, Renu. We will see you next week. You were listening to...
Happy birthday to me.
Oh, that's true. It's tomorrow, though.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Play a song for me.
Have a great year ahead, and thank you so much for this wonderful
Happy 21st to myself.
Absolutely. You were listening to Candid Conversations with Renu Dillon. We will be back next week. Stay tuned to Radio Zindagi.